Hi, I'm Mama Rich, and these are my pearls. It's late in the evening, and I should probably be in bed, but I wanted to jump back on here because it's been a very long year, and we're already halfway through. There's so much to talk about, and honestly, I don't even know where to begin. So let me just start with today. Tonight, I'm reading the book of Ruth, which is a story about God's providence for his chosen people and the way that he has a plan and he works that plan out no matter what. And there's not a lot of talk in the Bible. Like, people don't self-talk, or we don't hear the conversations that they have in their head. And so we don't know really what Ruth is actually thinking unless she said it out loud. So I could just imagine Ruth. Her husband dies, and she's left with a choice. She could go home to her family of origin and start over and essentially be like she was never married before. She has no children to look after. She's obviously been married only 10 years. So she's likely 24 years old, young and beautiful, and probably would marry very easily one day. But instead of going back home, she chooses to follow her mother-in-law, Naomi, back to Naomi's hometown. And as I first read this story, I couldn't help but think, what was so bad about her home life, her family of origin, that she would rather go off to a strange place with her mother-in-law than be with her family of origin? Now, I want to tell you that I didn't dwell on that thought for very long, because when I first reviewed this book, I think it was in January or February, my life circumstances were teaching me more about how to be the kind of daughter-in-law that actually wants to hang out with your mother-in-law, because that's not my jam, really. I don't have a lot in common with my mother-in-law. Honestly, the only thing I think we have in common is her son. So at the time I first read this, my perspective was geared mostly on how did Ruth stick to it with her mother-in-law. But now my life circumstances are very different from what they were in January. And now I find myself wondering, what on earth was so bad in Ruth's family of origin that she would rather go to a strange place, knowing absolutely not a soul, with her mother-in-law, than go home and start over in her family of origin? So today, my own family of origin was a very, very challenging topic, and actually, took up way too much of my time today. I think that sometimes when we're young and life is unfolding at the speed of light, actually, we often don't see long term. We see what's in front of us, and we maybe set some 5-year goals. I know I had 5-year goals. I had 10-year goals. But I actually didn't anticipate living this long. I didn't anticipate dealing with some of the things that I am now dealing with. I will say, obviously, part of our story is that we battled with infertility, obviously with insecurity as well, but we battled infertility for 13 years before we ever were able to have our first child. And when that happens, and you know in your soul that you're to be a mother, and you ask God to take away the desire for you to be a mother or to deliver your child, you don't think, okay, now that I've had to wait 13 years to have my child. I'm the oldest of my parents' children. So in our family of origin, there are 3 daughters, and I'm the oldest. My next sister is 3 years younger than me, and the baby of the family is 6 years younger than me. So there's 3 years in between each of us girls. I actually am the oldest child with the youngest children. So I had my children last after both of my sisters had all of their children. It didn't occur to me at the time that long after, or, not long, but 4 years after, my youngest sister's youngest child graduated high school, I would still be raising a middle schooler. I am in the throes right now of raising a teenager, and then I just started raising my second teenager. So my sisters, one has 2 adult children and 2 minor children, and one has only 2 adult children. All of her children are adults now. And I have only minor children. So our life circumstances are very, very different right now. And I did not anticipate at this stage in my life being the mother of the youngest children, of a middle schooler and a high schooler, and having to care for my own parents. I didn't imagine that my father would be dead and my mother would be dependent on us for her care. I didn't foresee that I myself would be disabled and need care. I didn't have an idea that all of these things would happen, right in this central time of my life. And so now I find myself looking at life very differently. Again, my siblings have a very different life circumstance than I have, so they most likely don't, see themselves in the situation that I find myself. And it is very challenging. And I try, because I am the oldest and I am supposed to be the most wise by definition of living longer and having more life experiences. I'm supposed to have answers, and I'm supposed to be able to do things, and I am just not, and I don't. I don't have answers, and I'm not able to do all the things. And that makes my life very challenging when it comes to having conversations with my mother and my sisters. Our conversations are not easy, because we all are in different places and we're experiencing different things. And so while one sister may be experiencing double because she has her adult children and her juvenile children, my other sister has only adult children, and so her experiences are a little bit different. And in this mix of all these, raising babies thing, we are now caring for an elderly person. And I find that that's extremely challenging because I don't have any extra time to give right now. My time is dedicated really to caring for our home and trying to be here for our kids. And so, without going into too much detail and talking about things that aren't mine to talk about, I want to just say that for me as a mom, I have 2 teenagers, and they will both drive this year. And I remember getting my driver's license. I remember the year I turned 16. I remember it very well. I worked in a nursing home, and my mother came up and she brought fudgesicles at break time, and we all sat around, all the nurses and staff who were working that day with me. We sat in the dining room of the nursing home that I worked at. We had our fudgesicles because that was my favorite snack, birthday treat. And my mom brought up the keys to my car, the car that my parents had bought for the three of us girls to drive. And they were on a key ring, a little gold key ring, and it had my initials on it. And I just remember it being such a special day. After work, I went home, I got changed. I went and got my driver's license that day. We all went up to the big city, and that's where I got my driver's license. And then, I was able to go to the county fair that night. I drove myself. I met my girlfriends. I mean, it was a really big deal. And I am excited for my oldest child to have that experience. I'm excited for my oldest to learn the excitement of freedom and responsibility and all of those things. And I feel somewhat sad because I'm not able to really fully enjoy it because I have other things I have to think about. I have to think about my mother, and I have to think about caring for her, and I have to think about getting along with my sisters in a dynamic that is not, we're not in a cohesive situation right now as extended family members. And so, I feel very much torn because I want to enjoy this time with my child as my mother was able to enjoy with me. I want to show her that I'm enjoying her. Time is short. Obviously, once you get your driver's license, in 2 years, you graduate from high school. So, I mean, it's very much sad and disappointing that I'm not able to enjoy this part of my kid's life. And I'm trying to establish boundaries where that's possible. The unfortunate thing is that my family of origin did not have good boundaries. And so I did not learn to set boundaries at all as a child or as a young person. I was never allowed to say no. I was never given the freedom to do what I wanted first and foremost. And so I was taught that others are first, self is last. It's not good to do for yourself. It's only good to do for others. You're only good when you're serving others. And quite honestly, that misinformation, that false truth that I built my life on is part of what has caused my disability. It's part of what's caused me to be so sick. I have used and abused myself physically and emotionally to the point where I'm not well enough to do the things that I used to do, or even some of the things that I want to do today. That maybe a normal, or I hate the word normal, but maybe an average person my age would be able to do. I am not able to do that because I've just sacrificed too much, so much. So, I think that's enough for today. I just wanted to kind of dip a toe back in the water for this podcast. And I just wanted to say that even though things are hard right now, and it is very difficult for me to know the right thing to do, because I did grow up in a home where I was taught to be selfless, and I was taught to put others first. I was taught to be the quote-unquote good girl, get along, share, don't put other people aside, always, encourage and uplift, turn the other cheek, those kinds of things. It's difficult, but it's not, it won't stop me. I will continue to try to figure this out. And so I wanted to just kind of share that a little bit, just to share, that I do daily seek to understand myself more, but also understand others more. And on the daily, I I ask God's guidance for me. As a Christian, I think, we have a hard time figuring out the balance because, the Bible says so many things, right? And even, Bible scholars have to admit that there are dual language, there's dual meaning in phrases in the Bible. And so I know that the Bible, says, do unto others as you should have done unto you, or you would have done unto you. And we call that the golden rule in society where, if you want someone to be nice to you, you be nice to them. I have a problem with some of those sayings because I think people do things for others with the expectation of having something reciprocated to them. I think we teach our children sometimes like that Santa mentality, like we have a God that's just watching us from the sky, and when we make a mistake, he's going to punish us. I don't necessarily believe that God spends his entire day supervising me so that he can punish me later. I definitely think that God definitely lets me live in the consequences of my own sin, but I don't think he's, got a magnifying glass on me and that I'm the only thing he thinks about in a day. For sure not. But as a Christian, I do struggle with that. Do unto others. I struggle with the honor your father and mother because there are times when what is being asked of me is not healthy by my parents, and not so much now because I'm an adult, I can kind of balance that. But I think, again, it goes back to that unhealthy boundary. And when you don't know how to set up a boundary in the first place, and you grow up and you learn and you like I said, I go to therapy and I learn new tools to use. So, long ago, back in the 90s, I learned about boundaries and my therapist taught me how to make boundaries. And making boundaries when you live, on a coast versus the Midwest is so much more simple because honestly, you're not seeing the person that you're creating the boundary with face to face. And it's very unlikely that they're going to come be in your backyard or whatever. So boundary setting is a lot easier when you're not face to face with the people that you're trying to set the boundaries with. But as a Christian, it's really hard to set a boundary when you know that you're supposed to honor your father and mother, or, treat others as you want to be treated. Those are the top two. I mean, this is not obviously restricted just to my parents. This goes for anybody. It goes for any relationship that I have. I'm working this out in all areas of my life, not just one. But even, it seems like I feel as though I've mastered this boundary setting thing, and then a new era of life comes in. And so sometimes I feel like, dang, I just thought I had that and now I don't. So I want to just be encouraging and say that every day I wake up and I make a new commitment to try again. And every day I attempt to make a better day than the day before. And so if you're listening and you're struggling, I just want you to hear me say you're not alone. And don't be afraid to reach out to a professional if you need help. And I wish you the very best tonight. I hope you get a good night's sleep. And I will try to dip a toe again tomorrow. This is Mama Rich saying, use your own brain and keep fighting to stay here. Hi, I'm Momma.